it's not a good thing that this has happened, obviously. What is good, however, is the high-profile reporting of it, because every time that happens, it brings it to the forefront and lets people think, okay, this is a society-wide issue, but importantly, it encourages people who may be affected by this to reach out for that support. And so the more we highlight this, the absolutely better it will be.
We're going to start, though, with definitely one of the biggest news stories of the day. Once the BBC's most senior news presenter, Huw Edwards, has pleaded guilty to 3 counts of making indecent images of children. He admitted having 41 images of children on his phone sent to him by another man on WhatsApp, and they have included 7 Category A images, which are the most serious classification. Now, though much of the discussion on this case has been around Huw Edwards, we thought that we'd look into how horrendous crimes affect children. So let's talk now to Gabrielle Shaw, who's the Chief Executive of the National Association for People Abused in Childhood. Gabrielle, very good afternoon from us.
Good afternoon.
It's such a difficult day, isn't it, for victims of abuse? And sometimes I think in the reporting of these cases, because they are so impactful, especially when it's a famous person we're talking about, the focus is on the perpetrator. And in fact, our focus does need to be on the victims of these crimes too.
Oh, 100% true. We know from the NAPAC telephone support line that we run that as soon as a high-profile case like this hits the headlines, we have an upsurge in calls from victims and survivors of any kind of childhood abuse and trauma. And a lot of it is, what about us? What about me? And it really brings up those memories from the trauma they suffered. So it's only right that we think about that and the effects that abuse has on victims.
And also use it as an opportunity to tackle what is a very difficult subject that we shy away from because it's unpleasant, it's nasty, it takes our minds to a very dark place.
So true. I mean, one of the things that you hear, and in fact, NAPAC will say that this is a public health issue, and that's absolutely true. But that's kind of just a banal phrase, isn't it? What does it mean? And I think it means it affects all of us. So everyone listening to this today, everyone participating in this interview today, whether you know it or not, you will know someone who's been affected by childhood abuse or trauma. You will know someone, you may love someone, you may live with someone, you may work with someone who has direct lived experience of this. It's not something far away over there on an island with different people. It's people who are here right now. So by that public health issue, part of it's hard to say, it's not a good thing that this has happened, obviously. What is good, however, is the high-profile reporting of it, because every time that happens, it brings it to the forefront and lets people think, okay, this is a society-wide issue, but importantly, it encourages people who may be affected by this to reach out for that support. And so the more we highlight this, the absolutely better it will be.
Have you already had an increased volume of calls to your helpline?
When the news first broke about Huw Edwards some time ago, I know this is a new kind of element of it that he's pleaded guilty. Yes, we did. Interestingly, it affects people in different ways. So you would think that, or maybe it's the victims and survivors of online abuse whose photos were taken will call us, but actually it's people of abuse of all kinds. What they're doing and what they call them when they contact the NAPAC support line is almost feeling their way in terms of reaching out for support. Because for so long, what we hear, do you know the number one thing we hear on the line? And I mean, everyone has very different experiences, but the number one phrase we hear is, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was alone. And what that speaks to is the isolation of the grooming process. Part of being the abuse happens when power meets vulnerability, and isolation is a key factor of that. So people speaking out is so important.
So, Gabriel, I know that you can't talk about this case in particular, and we wouldn't ask you to for any number of reasons. But can we just talk about the wider problem? Do you know what the police process is when images like this might be found on people's devices? How do the authorities then go about finding these children or these young people and finding out more about how to help them.
Yeah, I think the policing response has improved hugely over the past 10 to 15 years in terms of dealing with all kinds of abuse, not just online abuse, but abuse of all kinds non-recently. In terms of online abuse, most forces will have, all forces in fact, will have victim identification teams. And also, there's a national response too. The National Crime Agency will hold the national portfolio for online abuse investigations. So it's a centralized resource. Then they'll go into, are these images already circulating? Sadly, we have a massive, massive global issue of images that are shared, not just so borderless crime. A lot of these images are sadly already known. They'll check to see have those children been identified, and if not, it's a whole collaboration process. And I know we've got a long way to go, but actually the UK does lead the way in terms of the policing response to dealing with online abuse as well as others. So there's some hope there.
Right. Well, I mean, let's flag that up, because it's a day and a story that does need a bit of hope injected into it.
Yeah.
Presumably, though, I mean, if we leave aside this case completely, if people see something on a website that looks like it features underage young people, presumably there's a problem in that person feeling that they're okay to report it, feeling perhaps that if they've seen it, they might be culpable for something in just having come across it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's let's be honest, that's a real concern. People might think, well, was I complicit in this? But my plea would be report it. There should be a report, depending on what website they're on. There should be like a report function, or if not, reporting it via the 101 or via police websites. Always bring this to the fore, because one thing I want people to reflect on, people may say, oh, this is a victimless crime. It's just a photo, like it's but behind every image it's a picture of a crime scene. A child has been abused, and whether they've already been identified by the authorities or not, there may be a chance they haven't. So this is an opportunity for everyone to kind of to play their part. And just actually speaking, you made a really good point about the hope, and I do want this to be a part of our hope, because again, what we hear from survivors and victims, it's all about the effect and the sometimes dreadful effects abuse has had. But if you have a positive interaction, and by that I mean if a victim or survivor engages with friends, with family, with policing, with the authorities, if they choose to report, and they have a positive interaction on that, it can be so beneficial. It will encourage them to encourage others to report. They'll feel more comfortable seeking support, help establish trust. There is so much we can all do by A, acknowledging the issue, and B, being open to providing that support and playing our part.
Gabrielle, it's really good to talk to you today. Thank you very much indeed. That's Gabrielle Shaw, who is the Chief Executive of the National Association for People Abused in Childhood. I'm going to give you a phone number now in case you need to use it. It's 0808 801 0331, or you can email support@napac.org.uk. So that's NAPAC. Or you could just type into any search engine, any search engine, the National Association for People Abused in Childhood, and you'll get there.
So important to emphasise, isn't it, that this is not a victimless crime.
No.
That those images are images of child abuse. That is what you're looking at if you elect to, why you would, obviously.
And the knowledge, if that's happened to you, that forevermore these things are being circulated, will make it incredibly difficult for you to feel that it would ever be something that you could put behind you. But I'm very impressed by what Gabrielle said there about actually our police force in the UK leading the way on this, and also that, today and every other day when we report something like this, could be a day when someone comes forward, gets the help that they need and can move on. So